Hello everyone, this is Jarl Excel and welcome to another review video on channel Duello. If you have been following my channel on a regular basis, you must have noticed that I have been reviewing and rating new cards whenever a new expansion arrives. And it is that time again. Compared to the previous videos, I just wanted to wait a bit and test out the new cards before shooting this video so that I could have a more, accurate evaluation on their power level. And also at the end of the video, I'm gonna make a summary review of the entire Price of Power expansion, so make sure to stay until the end if you are interested. But before rating any cards, let's take a look at my rating criteria. Okay, so I have been using this criteria for a while. I think it's pretty accurate, so I hope you like it as well. So this is how it works. I rate cards 5 out of 5 stars if they are auto-included in almost every competitive deck in that specific faction. And there are some cards like that right now. 4 stars are staple cards in a tier 1 to tier 2 deck, highly competitive decks, let's say. And I rate 3 stars for cards that are good actually, but as better alternatives, and they could find some place in lower tier decks. So they're average cards, as a summary. 2 stars are basically meme cards. They could find place in non-competitive decks. They could be powerful when certain conditions met, so that's why I reserve the 2 stars, rating for meme cards. And 1 star is basically garbage, although, lately we haven't seen many garbage cards, because, most of them kind of works, and there is some power creep, because, every new card is usually better than the previous cards, so it's really difficult to find a 1-star card. Okay, so let's start with the neutral cards of Harvest of Sorrow expansion. Okay, the Mushy Truffle. This is a location card, and I'm really happy that CD Projekt Red embraced this idea, and they will keep printing location. They are pretty cool in design, having resilience and dividing the ability into 2 turns if you want to. It's pretty cool. And Mushy Truffle is really a good location card. Well, first of all, you should play some bonded units if you want to, add Mushy Truffle to your deck, so that you can spawn and play a bonded unit from your starting deck. Well, the bonded units were average at best before this expansion came out, but with this expansion, CD Projekt released a bonded card for each faction, and they are pretty good. So including Mushy Truffle, if you're not running Devotion, is a good idea, and most of the factions have pretty good choices for that. And this ability is also pretty good, because you can spawn and play Golden Froth, and Golden Froth is 6 points, and you usually get value even more than 9 points, since the Mushy Truffle value is 9, and you can divide that value into 2 rounds, which is really valuable. And it is also, this Golden Froth is compatible with the spawn, not spawn, but swarm, archetype. You gotta have a lot. Since you're playing a bonded card, there will be another one coming up, and so on. So if you put 3 units next to each other, Golden Froth will find value. So you need to kind of design your deck so that you can play your Golden Froth easily. Anyhow, this is a 4-star card. We can already see this card in most of the competitive decks. And the only pretty much reason you're not running Mushy Truffle right now is you're running Devotion. So this is a neutral card, so you can't include it. And also, some specific combo decks and other stuff. Other than that, Skellige is using it, Northern Ram's using it, and, we even see that in Syndicate decks. I'm pretty sure we will see this card being played even more often. So this definitely deserves a 4-star rating. It's not a 5-star because you cannot play it in Devotion. The other neutral card for Harvest of Sorrow is Alissa Hansen. Well, this card looked really good at first, but right now we never see this card being played. It's a neutral card. You can shuffle a special card from your graveyard to your deck. It's a bronze card. Also shuffle 1 additional copy of that special I mean, I'm pretty sure we'll see this card in some, specific combo deck or something like that, but I don't think this card is playable. I thought, you could play this in Squirtle decks. There are a lot of special cards in your graveyard. Maybe you can, shuffle one of them and replay again and so on. But even in that deck, we're not using Alissa. So that's why I'm rating this 2 stars. It's a very... I mean, she is unfortunately a meme card, so I mean, you cannot insert this to a competitive deck right now. But maybe we'll see a buff or something like that in the future, so that could change. Okay, so let's start with the factions then. After the 2 neutral cards, we have monsters. So monsters have been receiving relic cards throughout the expansion, and Harvest of Sorrow is no exception. This time the cards are kind of different, and they are designed to be, let's say, compatible with a specific legendary card. But let's start with the Bonded Bronze card, Lesser Witch. If you have Bonded, she basically spawns another copy of herself, so you need to play one more before playing this, and if you're planning to play this, you need to play Mushy Truffle. And this card really helps you achieve Sabbath easily because you put a lot of units on the board. But I mean, you can play her in Relic deck, but I don't think that's really powerful, and I'm not really sure whether you should include this card unless you're running the legendary card, which is Yaga. That's why I rated her 3 stars. I don't think this is a meme card, but she just fits into a, let's say, lower tier deck. That's why she's 3 stars. Yaga is a really cool design. Unfortunately, his provision cost is really too high, 13 provision. This card basically is hungry and eats units. And if you have Sabbath, it gains Zeal, or he, or whatever this creature is. And you consume a 4 provision unit. And this doesn't have to be your own unit. You can consume units from the opponent's side of the board, which is really powerful, because all of a sudden you can get a huge point swing with that, especially if that unit is boosted. And there are some units like that in this meta right now. And then this card can keep eating with cooldown 2. You skip a turn, and then the next turn you can eat a 5 provision unit, and then another 2 turns you eat a 6 provision unit. But unfortunately, this card could not survive that long, and you usually just consume a 4 provision unit, and then the game's or the round is over basically. Well, it is a good card, but I'm not sure this card deserves a 13 provision rating. But I mean, if you make this card lower provision, I mean, this card provides an extremely, big, huge point swings. So I'm not sure how you can fix this card, but right now it's really low power. I mean, you'd rather play something else in a relics deck. I have tried it. I really like playing it, but I don't think it's competitive enough, so that's why I'm rating this 3 star, but it's definitely not a meme card. So this is a playable card, but I don't know, maybe you can, the provision increase is kind of bad. I mean, you could say like you can eat 5 or less provisions, but it's not the case. You need to eat 5 provision after you eat 4, and then 6. So it's not or less. If you add a word like that, maybe this could become more playable. And Incubus is basically designed to play with Yaga. Well, the other witch, you can play it by herself if there isn't Yaga, but I'm not sure if that's a good choice. But Incubus is just only used for Yaga. This is a bronze card, and I'm not sure if this card should have been bronze, because you never ever want to include 2 copies of this card. You summon a bronze unit from your opponent's graveyard to the opposite row, and then summon a bronze unit of equal or less provision. So there are, high-powered, less provision monster units. Okay, but this is not a good card. 5 for 5. I mean, maybe you can get some value from the other summon, but I mean, you need to have Yaga on the board. So if you're lacking, let's say, 5 provision card to eat, Incubus could bring you that value, but it requires a tremendous amount of setup. I don't think this card is good at all, and I have tried him in a Yaga deck. what happens is you usually mulligan away this card, because you need to have Yaga when you have Incubus. That's why I'm rating this card 2 stars only, and this could be a 1-star card. So I mean, you could easily come to that decision. So I won't argue if you say it's a 1 provision garbage card. The only playable card in a competitive deck in this Harvest of Sorrow expansion is Witch's Sabbath. This card could summon up to 3 highest power units from your opponent's graveyard to an enemy row, and then you summon 3 units from your own side and as many highest power monster units. So there is no provision restriction. I mean, you could just summon 3 crap cards that have deployability, but their power could be, you know, low. And you summon your 10, 12 power units on the opposite row. And this could really easily win you the game. And this card is already being played in Caltulus decks. So Caltulus has been revived thanks to this card. So you can play your Defender and other engines twice, which is a big deal. And you can sometimes even play Caltulus twice. So Witch's Sabbath is definitely a great card. And other than that, I mean, in Relic decks, you can also use this card to gain a Sabbath quickly, because when you play it, you immediately have Sabbath. You know, the total of 3 units would probably be around 25. So I think this is a very good card. So it deserves a 4-star rating. Let's move on to Nilfgaard. What about Nilfgaard? Well, Nilfgaard received some, let's say, a single great card, but the other cards I'm not so sure. Let's start with the Bonded Bronze card, Illusionist. Deploy, spawn a base copy of a bronze unit from your opponent's graveyard on the right of this card and set its power to 1. So this card helps with assimilate engines, so you're spawning a card outside your deck. But with Bonded, you don't set its power to 1. So the second Illusionist would bring you a lot of value. But is this good enough to be playable? Because it's 4 provisions for 3. It's really low tempo card. And in this meta, I'm not sure this would work. And, you know, the opponent can easily destroy this unit because its power is 3. So you cannot play your Bonded unit after that. I don't think this is a good card at all. This could work in certain meme decks. That's why I'm rating this 2 stars. It's a meme card. Wilgefortz Renegade. We had high expectations for another Wilgefortz card, but unfortunately this is a disappointment. Why? The ability is very specific and the provision is insanely high. And what does this card do? Deploy, swap a card from your opponent's graveyard with a card in your hand. So the objective is basically, you know, if you have a bad card left in your hand, you upgrade it to a better card in your opponent's graveyard. Again, this requires a huge setup. And maybe you could try some wacky combos with this card, and I have seen people trying it and being successful at it, but most of the time, you know, you can do your combo, but you still lose the game, because right now the meta is really, I mean, there are a lot of huge point slam cards in this meta, so Wilgefortz Renegade is just not good enough, and 13 provision is too much, and that's why I'm rating this 2 stars, and which means that this is a meme card. Imperial Practitioner, the second bronze card for Nilfgaard. This has Assimilate for 5, so it's not that bad. But we have the Mage Torturers, which is 5 for 5 again, and has a cool, you know, mechanic, giving Spy. What does this do? Order, spawn a base copy of the last card that went to your opponent's graveyard on top of your deck. So this could be valuable if he survives 1 turn. But in very specific cases, like in the second round, for example, I mean, there could be a good card that went into your opponent's graveyard, maybe as the last card of the first round. So you can put it back to your to the top of your deck, and you can play it in third round. And first round, maybe there won't be any cards in the graveyard, so you may not find any cards. And in the final round, unless you're playing Sunset Wonder, which you could, by the way, maybe Invocation, yeah, there are some tools to draw the card that you put at the top of your deck. But again, it's a lot of setup. I'm not sure if it's good enough, but the assimilate is a good thing. So we have seen this guy being played in some competitive decks, but I don't think it's that great. So still, you remove this card and add something else. So I think it's a 3-star card. It's not bad at all. There are just better options. And the final, but not the least, Lydia Van Bredafoot. Probably I butchered the pronunciation. Well, this card is just insane. Great, let's say, a card that feeds all of your assimilate engines because you're creating a card outside your deck. Plus, you get a lot of value. What does she do? If you play this card on melee row, you create and play a bronze special card from your opponent's faction. So it's similar to Imperial Diplomacy, but only for special cards. If you play her on range row, you steal a special card from your opponent and you replay it. That has to be bronze though, so be careful. But still, you get a lot of value from this. And I kind of expect a nerf to this card, maybe decrease its power to 4. Because, 9 provision, 5 power. The special card you're playing is usually around 5 or 6. Plus you get assimilate value if there are assimilate engines on the board. So that is a lot of huge point swing. That's why I'm rating this 5-star, and no wonder we're seeing this card in almost every Nilfgaard deck. Maybe we're not seeing it on hyper thin, but I mean, since everyone is kind of playing assimilate, that's why we see this card everywhere. And I replaced Bribery with this. I think she's more reliable. So I think she deserves 5-star and one of the best cards in the Harvest of Sorrow expansion. What about Skellige? Well, we were expecting, the spell theme going on, print even more spell cards. But instead, all of a sudden, in this part of the expansion, we got hand boost cards. Hand buff cards, or... Well, that is kind of a surprising, but the cards made the hand buff deck, or the invigorate, leader ability, playable, actually. But not, let's say, tier 1 or tier 2. It's, I think, at best tier 3, because it's really easy to defend against invigorate. It's just because of the nature of the ability. I mean, you could produce a lot of value thanks to the boosts in your hand and so on, but it's really susceptible to bleeding. So if the opponent gets round control, you're pretty much screwed. All of the buffed engines will come out earlier than you want it. So I mean, I don't think it's that great, but still, I mean, kudos to CD Projekt Red for making us play some, hand buff units for a while. There are better options. That's the reason we're not playing hand buff. But maybe we'll see, being more competitive in the future, maybe with the addition of some cards, but maybe tweaking the, invigorate leader ability, that could work. We'll see. Anyway, what about the cards? Watcher of the Valley, the bronze card, is a bonded card. This card is created for hand buff deck, only for invigorate. So you need to play 2 copies of it. The first copy will, get boosted and will give bleeding for the amount of that's being boosted. But the second copy becomes like a Sheldon Skaggs. I mean, if the other copy survived, you play the other one and you damage it for the amount of it's boosted. And that's just insane value. I mean, you could argue that you don't need Sheldon Skaggs when you have these. But I mean, I don't know, maybe it's still a good idea to play Skaggs and hope that you draw him. So this is a pretty good card for that deck only, and you don't play this card ever in any Skellige deck, so that's why I'm rating this 3-star. But if, invigorate and hand buff becomes a thing, this could be easily upgraded to a 4-star. Torque is the same. Torque is the essential, hand buff card. It's great. This card starts in your hand. Whenever this card is boosted in your hand, thanks to your leader ability and other, hand buff cards, the same amount of boost goes to a random unit in your hand. Randomness isn't great, but I mean, if it was targeted, that would be really overpowered. But still, you know, you play like Ethne and you target Torque, and the same amount of boost goes to another unit. So that's really huge value. I mean, you could really create units like, you know, 19 power or something like that, especially Torque gets really huge. So that will be really fun. And you could win some games, so that's really good. But I think it is that good, so that's the reason I'm rating this card 3 stars. And having to play Devotion is also a downside, so you cannot play it. Let's say if you're planning to play Heatwave or Xavier, you just cannot play Hand Buff because you need Torque. And I mean, with Devotion, this card always starts in your hand. I mean, if you risk it and play non-Devotion, Torque will not play in your hand, so why play him in the first place then? Still, it's a good design. I really applaud CD Projekt Red with this. It's 3 stars, but it's very close to a 4-star rating. I think this card is the best Scoia'tael card in this set, Bountiful Harvest, because you don't have to play it in a hand buff deck. You can play it in other Scoia'tael decks as well, because for 6 provisions you get a lot of value. What does this card do? Create and play a Bronze Doll Blath and Elves, and these are our selections. So, well, actually, there is this new card as well. I didn't include it, and so 7. You have 3 out of 7 choices. You select the one that you need, but also you have to pay attention to that. Whichever card you select, it's parallel to the units in your hand. So if you select the left unit, the left side, the leftmost side unit in your hand will get a boost by 2. So not only this is spawning a unit, you also get a hand boost by 2. And if you're playing Symbiosis, this is a nature card, you spawn Treants. So this is great for Symbiosis decks and also good in other decks. And you can replay this card with Forest Protector, and Simlats can, you know, play 2 copies of it. And all of a sudden, I mean, suppose you're behind like 12, 13 points, you play your Simlats and play 2 Bountiful Harvests, and boom, you win the round. And this also helps with the boost for Gord. So I think this is a great card, just 5 stars. No wonder we're seeing this in a lot of Scoia'tael decks. Unless you're playing Unitless, you have to play this card. Great design. The final card is the legendary Filavandrel card. I like the design of this card as well, but this card has to be in your hand, similar to Torque. But you gotta play Torque in only Devotion, and you need to play it with Invigorate. And you can play Filavandrel in Nature's Gift decks, because I mean, if this card is in your hand, there are many chances to boost him up. So if this card is boosted, you create and play a Scoia'tael special card with a provision cost equal to this unit's power. So you gotta pay attention to the provisions, and you gotta memorize what special cards there are in Scoia'tael, so that, you know, you play this. Suppose, I mean, if it's 8 powered, you play your, you know, Isengrim's Council. You know, with 10 power, you can play your Call of the Forest. With 12, you can play Water of Brokilon, and so on. So there are many options. But if you can't boost this card, or you just draw him in the final round, this just becomes a 4 provision plus a bronze special card, because you play this and you get a 4 provision bronze, so that's not really a good value. That's why I'm kind of mixed in between. I really like this card. I have played it in Nature's Gift. That's why I'm rating this 4 star, but it is kind of a 3.5 star card. And I don't know how you can guarantee this card in your hand, so there's no way to do that. But whenever I have this card in my hand, I usually win the game. So he is that powerful, because, you know, you provide you bring a lot of value to the board when this card is boosted. Okay, so Northern Realms. Well, Northern Realms has been a controversial faction this season, due to this card, Meditating Mage. This card has resilience keyword attached to a 4 provision value, and that's not really right way to do it. Resilience is extremely strong. Okay, I mean, this has to be bonded, so you need 2 copies of it. But they printed a lot of, you know, spawn cards. I mean, so you can produce a lot of mages, and there's this infamous meditating mage deck running around, which is really unhealthy for this game, because it's against the fundamentals of Gwent. I mean, card advantage is really important, and you intentionally lose your card advantage, play a lot of mages, and then play the worst card in the expansion, which is Tasir. So they managed to find a value for that card, and you reset your orders, you gain resilience, and then gain resilience once more in the next round. So, and in combination with Aretusa Adept, those adepts become like mini Colgrims, and all of a sudden you can 2-0 your opponent when you have like 3 or 4 cards down. This is not correct. I mean, it's not fun to play against, and it's not fun to play as well. I really hate that deck, but I don't hate this cards as much. Maybe, I mean, they could nerf Aretusa Adept, so that could be a solution, because the boost she receives should be limited to 1 per turn, and maybe increase her power to 5 or something like that. That nerf needs to happen. And then maybe don't touch this card, because I don't know how to fix this. Then the power value of that deck will tremendously decrease, and this could become like a tier 3 deck. And I think a deck like that could stay in the meta. And maybe you do not go for full meditating mage, but as an additional point, you play these two if you manage to, and also play the truffle, mushy truffle, and if you manage to play 3 of them, 3 carryover would be really totally reasonable. And in a mage theme deck you can play this, but the deck is basically running only meditating mages, which is really bad. I mean, I wish they playtested this card and the other cards that are compatible with this card, and saw the unhealthy interactions. Especially Hydran is a problem in any unhealthy deck, unfortunately. If you can't find an answer to Defender and then Hydran, you basically lose the game against this deck. But it's not a tier 1 deck, but it's definitely a tier 2 deck in my opinion right now. And I'm hoping that when you watch this video, I hope that deck is already nerfed. So I hope they listened to what I said in this video. Well, what about the rating for this card? It's a 4-star card. The Meditating Mages deck is definitely powerful. We can't deny it. And I think it deserves a 4-star rating. But when the deck is nerfed, this will decrease to a 3-star or maybe 2-star. What about the rest of the cards? Rofar's Vengers. I love this card. Great design. And also really powerful and maybe overpowered. But Northern Realms needed a card like this. This is a healthy card, and the other interaction is unhealthy. So there are 2 examples of this. Well, with Inspired Seal, this card becomes really insane. You immediately trigger its order value, and you play a bronze unit from your hand. So in 1 turn you play 2 cards, and then there's this cooldown 5 with Winch. You can decrease its cooldown and do that once again in the same round. And there's this cool bonus crew ability whenever you play a mage or soldier next to it, if it's in between those 2 pockets. If it's in that pocket, you deal random 2 damage to enemy units. So great card. I mean, it definitely deserves 9 provision. This could be decreased up to 10 provisions maybe, but I think it's good. I think it should stay in the game. And another good thing about this card is actually it's creating consistency. You play your bronze units from your hand, you thin your deck, which Northern Realms really needed, and you have a better chance to access your highly powerful gold cards, those 10 provision units which you fail to draw most of the time. So the odds of drawing them gets much higher. You can draw your Siege, your Viraxes. So not only this card helps you win the round, but also helps you win the other round and the game. I love it. So it's 5 stars. Alumni. Well, this card is also a cool in design, both artwork and the design. I mean, the text of it. Basically, Bernard and Aretusa adapts, students graduate from the school, and the patience amount is transferred to this card. I mean, So boost an ally unit by the amount of patience achieved by your Bernard student or Eretüzü student card. So depending on which student got the benefit, you play this on melee or range row. But if both values are equal to or higher than 4, which is not easy thing to do, this could gain zeal. And gaining zeal is huge. You immediately play this, and suppose your Bernard student achieves 7 patience and the Eretüzü student received 4 points. You always play this card for 11. It's just insane. So the opponent should be aware of your strategy and try to prevent that thing happening. I mean, both values being more than 4. If one value is high, this card becomes good, and if both values are more than 4, this card becomes overpowered. And if you couldn't, develop any of those cards, this card becomes garbage. 644 is terrible. So it is kind of a high risk, high reward cards. So I'm rating this 3 stars, but it's close to a 4 star. And right now I'm testing this with only 1 copy in a dual deck. But I have seen some decks totally built around this card. So they just produce those student tokens and again intentionally go card down to do that, and then play alumni in the final round with a lot of spawns and summons and stuff. They can copy those units. It's not healthy once again, but it's slightly better than meditating mages, I guess. And the final card is a legendary location. Again, I love locations. This one has a rune word attached to it. On deploy, you play rune word, spawn and play a mage with a shield on it. And the order ability spawn a base copy of less played allied bronze mage. So you can totally control this order ability if you're keeping up with what you're playing. And this card could bring you a lot of value, but it's 13 provisions. It's not that low. And there will be times you're not going to get 13 value from this card. So this card has to be played in a specific deck. That's why I'm rating this 4 stars. Unfortunately, this card is being included in that toxic deck. So hopefully we can see this in a more standard mage theme deck. What about Skellige? Skellige is all about rain and druids and stuff in this expansion. The bronze bonded unit is Little Halfru. You would expect to play this card in a rain deck, because this can spawn rain with order ability. But instead we're seeing this more in a Reckless Flurry deck. And basically, I mean, she's everywhere. So that's why I'm rating this 4 star. This card is especially good. I mean, there's this bonded ability. I know, I mean, you can play 8 and even 10 if you play out of graveyard. But the good thing about it is Skellige's control decks are lacking proactive plays, and this card really fits the bill. You just play it 4 for 6. You don't have to click on the order ability if you don't want to. Gives a lot of flexibility, and bringing her from the graveyard where Fucusia is just really good. Feels good. And this is a solid 4 star, that's why. And talking about Fucusia, this could be one of the best cards in the entire expansion. And this is definitely the best Skellige card in the expansion. Because this is an auto include in every Skellige deck. And I haven't seen a Skellige deck that is not using this card. It's that powerful. Because the deployability is just insane. You play a Skellige unit from your graveyard with a provision cost of 10 or less. And 10 is a big deal. There are a lot of cards that have 10, 9, 8 provision. You can replay them. This is not someone you can play and use the deployability of those cards. And then on top of that, suppose you're playing a 7 provision card, 3 less than the 10 required. The remaining, provision is turned into a rain on the opposite row with a duration equal to unused provision. That's just insane value. And no wonder it's a 5 star card. Messenger of the Sea is designed to be used with rain decks. You're not going to see her in any other decks, but rain decks right now is really playable. I don't think it's a tier 1 deck, but it's a highly competitive deck, so you can definitely get a lot of success with it. So whenever rain or storm damages enemy units, this turns into a great sword, but before the nerf, because there is no upper limit. If the opponent fails to respond to this unit, she could get up to 20 power or something like that for only 6 provisions. But this card will really work well with Ryoga, that's who I will talk about a bit later. And I think she deserves a 4-star rating. But if Rain deck becomes unplayable or not popular, you could decrease this value to 3 stars. Ryoga and the Undying, this card is just basically designed to play with Rage of the Sea leader ability, because when you're playing a Rain deck, there were a lot of times that the remaining rain was going to waste, especially with Fulmar and your leader ability and so on. Instead, you're using all the remaining rain thanks to this card. And this card starts in your graveyard, so you thin out your deck by 1. And as a last, play, as a last save card, you just play the rain and bring out the heavens on the enemy units. And if you have 1 or 2 of these, you just basically win the game. But opponent can just respond with a single Xavier and remove this card. So at least this is easy to get answer. So that's why I'm rating this 4-star. It's not a 5-star card, but this is an auto include in Rain and Rage of the Sea decks. And the final faction is Syndicate. Well, Syndicate has the bounty theme going on, and with Goeta, we have seen the theme being switched from spell to hand buff, but not in Syndicate, unfortunately, because bounty sucks. Unfortunately, in this meta, bounty is really slow. Bounty decks are only good against, engine decks. Other than that, it's really hard to win games with it. I have really tried hard to make a playable deck. It's not working out. And let's talk about the newly added 4 cards here. The bonded card is Savvy Huckster. If you're playing it without the bonded ability, you get 4/6, I guess, values, which is acceptable in this meta. But it's not doing anything special. It's a human. It's not a, let's say, blind eye or any other, gang tag or something. So no benefit from playing this. With bonded, yeah, you can get 4/8 value. It is good, but it's just not good enough. This doesn't warrant. If you're playing Mushy Truffle, which Syndicate is right now in passive Flora decks, you just there are better bonded options. Even Beggar is better than this. Beggar has bonded, and obviously the Slice Ejectress is a great value with that Truffle artifact. So when you're playing Mushy Truffle and you're not playing the bonded unit, then it means that this card is just bad. That's why I'm rating this 1-star. It's garbage. It's not horrible, but you can't play this card. There are better options, and there's no reason to play this card. But as a power level, you get value. It's definitely better than Wolfpack or something like that. But it's not a 2-star card because you can't play this on theme decks. It's like 2.5-star, but there is no rating that I made for this card, so that's the reason it's just 1-star. What about Purge? Damage an enemy unit by 3, increase the damage by 1 for every witch hunter on your side of the battlefield. And it means that you could get 5 or 6 value if you have a couple of witch hunters on the board. So you have to play bounty theme and a lot of witch hunters, but there is no witch hunter swarm or something like that, because engine witch hunter cards are easily removed by the opponent. So I have played with this card, and I don't think I have it's more than 5, at most 5. Death blow ability is pretty cool. You place a bounty on the highest power enemy unit, but it's really hard to do. That's why I'm rating this 1-star. Bounty theme is already weak, and this card, in some bounty decks, I didn't play this card because Hysteria is even better than this. That's why this is a 1-star card. The Brute, on the other hand, is an amazing card, but again, you have to play this card in bounty theme deck. You cannot play this card in any other Syndicate decks. And as a matter of fact, you need to play this card with Pirate Cove leader ability, because the leader ability Sea Jackal is great with this. because when you play this card, you're going to produce a lot of coins, so there is a really good chance that you're going to over profit. So to prevent that over profiting, you need to play the Sea Jackal first, and then, you know, get the remaining, you know, coins to Sea Jackal, and then play Brute. Brute will also boost himself by a lot of points. It's depending on the amount of bounty. So for 13 provision, there have been times like this played for 25 or something like that. So this is a great finisher card. The downside of this is you cannot play this card in the first 2 rounds. So, but with her mother tutoring card, you can, you know, guarantee to, you know, draw him. But since the use of this card is very restricted, I'm rating this 4-star. But there is a, you know, argument that you can rate this 3 because bounty is not a tier 1 or tier 2 deck, but just for the sheer power of this card, I'm rating this 4. Besides, the artwork is pretty cool. And finally, Octavia Hale, the mother of other Hale brothers. Deploy, draw up to 2 of Octavia's sons to your hand. So you need to know the relatives of this card. So there are 4 options. Fabian, the Hale brothers and their alter egos. So, but the brothers themselves are not good, but the alter egos, which are Brute and the Scoundrel, are really good cards. You are guaranteed to play them in bounty decks, so you can play Octavia Hale as a tutor card. 7/7 isn't bad, so I think it's playable, but only in bounty decks, so that's why this card is 3 stars. And I have seen some bounty cards not playing her, and I don't criticize them. I mean, you don't have to play this card. Still, it's 3 stars. So that's it for this Harvest of Sorrow expansion. But I'm just gonna summarize the entire Price of Power expansion just a bit, you know, go over the factions for a bit. And let's talk about the strategy first, the release strategy. They decided to divide this expansion into 3 parts, and that has created some awkward situations. I mean, in some parts, some you know, factions were really overpowered. For example, the monsters, you know, the relics were insane when they were first printed, and we have seen some nerfs to cool them down a bit. And then, you know, in one expansion, Northern Realms got pretty much nothing, and Scoia'tael was weak. And I mean, the power level always kept changing, and they were printing some cards, and you kind of feel that something was missing. For example, you know, you print Bernard Student, and the other counterpart of that student, you know, the Aretusa students, was going to be released in the second expansion. So, you know, they need to go together. And then the final piece was released in the final part, the alumni. So it would be really great if you printed all of them in the same expansion. So I'm not sure this was a good idea. And on top of that, we weren't able to, you know, open kegs. And if there were some players that were lacking in resources, that would have been a huge problem for them. I mean, I have been grinding this game for a while, so I have kind of unlimited resources, so that's not a problem for me. But for the others, that is a problem. So I don't think this was a good strategy. And on top of that, people love opening kegs. So preventing them not to open kegs and being able to craft them only was a big mistake, in my opinion. And right now with the final expansion, you can open your kegs, but it's too late. So I'm pretty sure they lost some customers while making that decision. Well, it has been fun to you know, see the meta changing a lot thanks to the, you know, 3 release schedules. However, I still don't think this was the good call. But I mean, if this was an experiment, I mean, there were some pros and cons about it. So hopefully CDPR will analyze what happened, and maybe they can send us a survey or something like that and take, I mean, lessons learned from that, and, you know, not repeat them in the next expansion. We're not sure what will happen in the next expansion. I mean, they promised, like, you know, the next expansion will be 3 parts as well, but I think in the last, you know, press release or the podcast, I don't think they will do that. Instead, they're gonna again release a mini expansion of cards. We'll see what happens in the future, I guess. Let's talk about the factions. So what happened with the factions in this Price of Power? the 3-part expansion. Well, Skellige got a lot of help in Rage of the Sea and Battle Trance Leader, because the rain units, the payoff for them was released in the final expansion, Ryoga and other rain cards. So rain has become a thing, definitely. This was a really weak archetype. Now you can play them. That's good. And a lot of druids has been printed, and in the middle of the releases, the provision cost of the bonded druids has been reduced to 4 and stuff. So it is possible to play Gedenith and druids as well. So that's good. So the more variety, the better. So Skellige came out really good out of this expansion. Nilfgaard, I think, is the ultimate winner of this expansion, because when you look at the meta decks in Nilfgaard, most of the cards are from the Price of Power expansion. Yeah, Terra Nova, Lydia, Deadman's Tongue, Furcard, Blightmaker, Mage Assassin. All of these cards are from this expansion, right? I'm not wrong about it, yeah. So, and they're all auto-include cards. Now we can play Hyper Thin, thanks to those insane thinning cards and so on. So it has been really good for Nilfgaard. This expansion has been really helpful, although they printed some, let's say, meme cards as well, like Rians and Vilgefortz. I wish they were better. But the other cards are just much better, so you just do not even touch them. Bradens, Terra Nova, and the list is kind of a standard for all Assimilate decks. Talking about monsters, monsters have received a lot of relic cards. They have really good interactions with them. I like the design, so it is kind of a swarm strategy. I mean, the more relic you play, the more benefit you get. The Sabbath ability is really cool. I really like that. And relics are playable, but Mamuna has been nerfed really hard, and she's still good though. But especially the Self-Eaters are not really good anymore. Not as good as they used to be. Maybe I'm not gonna say take the nerf back, but maybe they should find something in between. But still, this is a pretty good deck, especially with Fruits of Iskith. And Northern Realms, well, right now Northern Realms is really powerful thanks to the Toxic Meditating Mages deck, and also Rafar's Vengeance is just amazing card. Maybe they intentionally reserved it for the final part. And the dual deck is really playable. You can also play Commandos if you want to, but I don't think it's that powerful anymore. That deck has been power crept. And it is possible to play Inspired Zeal and draw your goals thanks to Rafart Vengeance. So it has been good for Northern Realms as well. The mage team is somewhat playable, if you forget about the meditating mages. And the students are, cool in design. Especially Banard students has been really good, that you put them in melee or damage units. And also buffs to other cards in the beginning of the expansion, like Shani, has been really great. So Northern Realms is in a good position, although Seer is just a bad card. And Scoia'tael have received a lot of spell Scoia'tael cards, and in the final part, the hand buff cards. Well, the spell cards are really good. The hand buff cards, I'm not so sure. So they kind of serve 2 archetypes with this expansion. Well, I'm not sure they are the strongest faction right now, but they're definitely playable. And the loser of this expansion is definitely Syndicate. CD Projekt Red, I don't know why, but for some reason think that we should play Bounty theme. Bounty is just a, additional, bonus to your existing deck. You can throw several, bounty cards. I mean, when, Line Pockets and, the drill was playable. I mean, what did you do? You add Witchfinder and, Graydon and maybe Professor. So, I mean, adding a bit of bounty cards is really valuable, but the last, cards printed are playable in only bounty cards, bounty theme cards, theme decks, and you just cannot win games with bounty. It's really not possible to do that. You cannot reach high MMR, even if you're a great player. It's really hard to do that. So I think it's a mistake to dedicate the entire set on bounty. So out of this set, there's only Witchfinder. Nothing else is playable in the set in any other decks. I mean, you can go back to Passiflora and play that, but it's just weaker than it used to be because all of the factions got stronger while the Syndicate kind of stayed the same. So definitely Syndicate, it wasn't good for Syndicate when the expansion was finally, all the parts were released. So this was my 2 cents on the expansion itself. I hope you liked what I did here. I talk a lot sometimes, even though English is not my mother language. Hopefully I'm not doing really bad about it. So sorry if my pronunciation isn't great at sometimes. But anyway, if you like the video, don't forget to hit the like button. And also, if you haven't subscribed to my channel, that would be really helpful if you do that. And thanks for the support, both to my Turkish and also international viewers. And hope to see you on another Duello video. Bye bye.